Thanks for joining us again. Maddie, Jared. Bit of Psycho Goreman this week. Again, we spoke about it last week. Shutter's finally kind of got something right. For me, personally, got it right because I didn't buy the fucking Blu-ray. Not like some other idiot here.
Well, I knew I was going to want it, so I couldn't wait. I jumped.
You couldn't wait.
I had a feeling it would turn up on Shutter, but I needed it. I needed to watch it.
Okay. All right, fair enough. All right, before we get to that, let's do a quick whip round. What have we been watching? Mine is very brief, so I'll go straight into it. We got onto Binge. Managed to get Binge, so that's another streaming service added. I think that's now 6.
Yeah.
6. Fuck, that's small sore potatoes.
Yeah, just keep it coming.
Yeah. But what do you get on when you get Binge for the first time? What do you think you get on first?
Oh, well, you've got all the HBO content on there, so some real quality stuff, I'm assuming.
Dr. Pimple Popper.
Right.
Dr. Pimple Popper. It was the first thing that was rolled out. And let me tell you something. I still feel ill.
Is this a documentary?
No, it's a weekly show. Like some of the shit that you've watched. I mean, I feel like I'm joining you in the wheelhouse of kind of reality TV trash. But basically, she's a dermatologist, and all these people come in with fucking massive lumps on them.
Oh my god, that sounds like my wife's heaven.
She would love it, I'm sure. It's basically people with cysts and lipomas, they're called, under the skin.
Any boils on the clacker?
No, we saw a lipoma on the clacker, though. Fucking hell.
Shutter should have picked this show up. It sounds disgusting.
And look, I know it's not specifically horror-related, but it was pretty horrifying. Right? One bloke, he had a massive lump on his back of his neck. Like, I'm talking softball size lump. He looked like the Hunchback. And he's like, I've had it for 10 years.
Jesus.
What the fuck? You've had it for 10 years? Oh, I didn't know. It started off as very little, and then I think once it starts impinging on your fucking ability to turn your head,
to put a shirt on,
that's when you know you're in strife, mate. You get it off then.
I've got sore knees, and I put it off, but I don't know if I've got an extra head on the back of my neck.
Yeah. I mean, 6 months tops. You think, I'll push through.
I'll give it a year, maximum year. And then I'm asking some questions.
Yeah.
Admittedly...
Might just nip down to the GP and see what's happening
Admittedly, several of them have said they've been to doctors who basically told them don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And then also, you're talking about America, so the system's probably not great. The cost is probably not good.
Should have gone to Dr. Pimple Popper
and
first time.
let me tell you, not to be a prick, but a few of them had no teeth, so I'm going to assume that, low socioeconomic.
Yeah.
They probably were also thinking, well, I can't afford to get this off.
Yeah.
Can't. Yeah. By the way, the guy who had something on the back of his neck, it was a lipoma. It was 2 pounds.
Jesus. So what was it?
I'm not
just massive lump of fat.
Of fat. Oh,
yep.
There you go.
I'm not watching.
Yeah.
I'm not going to watch it.
I'm going to continue.
I'm going to tell my wife about it. I'm going to tell you guys about it next time.
Tell your wife it's there. Worth every penny. I also watched Class Action Park, documentary about Action Park. Look, I don't know how I feel about it because I thought the first 45 minutes, I was loving it. I was pissing my pants.
Yeah.
And also, I actually went on one of those rides, exactly the same, the one where they hold the bar and just drop.
Yeah.
And then you slide down and people's pants were coming off and stuff.
Yep.
I went on one exactly the same in Greece.
Yep.
Same fucking thing. You are actually airborne for a few seconds. And so as soon as you let go, your initial thought is, oh shit, I'm going to die. And then gravity puts you back onto the thing. But I liked it. I thought it was piss funny hearing all the stories about all these morons and these ridiculous rides that they were putting together and everything.
Yeah.
But then when they started bringing in the deaths...
Yeah, it started to take a different
They talked to the
tone.
family of one of the people who died. And the documentary paid very little heed to that.
Yeah.
And basically seemed to still kind of lionise the fuckwit who made the place.
It went more with the kind of badge of honour route.
The guy who made it was an absolute dickhead. He was a prick.
Because it was like 3 or 4 people, wasn't it, that died?
Yeah, 4 people died.
4 people.
Yeah. And the guy who made it, Gene Melville, he sounded like an asshole. Like every time I spoke about it, he was always doing something dodgy to avoid paying bills and stuff.
Well, didn't he pay insurance to himself?
Yeah, he faked an insurance company.
Yeah,
the documentary seemed to kind of skirt around a lot of that and seemed to not. To me, you do not have the families of the dead people. You go into it, but you don't go there. And they went there, and I felt it kind of. The documentary had two different halves, so they were totally different tones. So I didn't particularly think it was that great. I did find it highly amusing, though, some of the early stuff. I shouldn't, because people did die, but people flying, they were testing rides by just getting staff, paying them $100. And then just go flying down there, and they'd all come out with bloody shit ripped off, the skin ripped off. And I mean, there was the one that, Jared, the one that was basically like a direct drop, then had a loop-to-loop.
Yeah.
And the bottom bit where you had to come out into the water, it was about 3 metres long. So you're coming out of there at an absolute cracking pace, and there's nothing to stop you.
That was if you got over the loop. Isn't there issues that people didn't get over the loop, so the next person's come flying down and someone's still stuck in there? I mean, Jesus Christ.
Scary.
Yeah.
Scary stuff. But, yeah, some of it I found amusing, but then I felt that they went the wrong way. And I felt for the families, you had to show a little bit of, bit of
empathy.
For the families, but I don't think the documentary did that at all. I watched the first episode of a British TV show from mid-2000s called Whitechapel, and it's basically current day Ripper murders. They start happening again, and this new detective realises they're actually identical. Everything's identical, including what he's wearing, where it was done, the fact that he did a similar attack beforehand to test it out, same number of stab wounds, all that kind of stuff. Really cool. Really interesting. First season is only 3 episodes, so I'm interested to see how that plays out. And I watched the first episode of I'll Be Gone in the Dark.
Yeah, great.
Which was pretty good. I haven't seen enough of it, and I think she did have a bit of an involvement in this, but I always look at this shit with trepidation after watching Cecil Hotel and some of these others. Is the problem that's become more prevalent is these web sleuths seem to think they somehow got involved, but they didn't.
Well, I think you've got it. I would hold back.
She probably, she might have put this one on the map.
She has a big part in this, and also you have to look at it as her story, not as a thing, because it ends up being that this is part of her story.
Yeah. So this might be a much better take on this whole thing.
Yeah, it's kind of true crime, but it's also in a sense that I haven't seen it in that it's more focused on her and gives her the spotlight and kind of what the impact it had on her and her life. And
that's more probably what works better. Because Cecil Hotel's problem was it was touching on the web sleuths and showing that most of them don't fucking know anything about anything.
Yeah, but I think obviously the early going's a little bit different. It develops to a point where I would say she's a bit more than the average web sleuth.
Okay. Well, that's good, because that's something that I was a bit cagey about when I started watching it.
Yeah.
And that was it for me. Matty?
It's been a bit lean for me. NBA Finals are on, so that's been pretty much all of my viewing. But, other than that, nothing.
Nothing.
Love on the Spectrum. Nothing.
Love on the Spectrum. I did watch that the other day. I will say about that, and I find it interesting to see that the context of the way they treat each other.
Yeah.
They treat each other with far better fucking respect than the average, the rest of us.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, you don't see these people, the blokes going, I'm looking for a girl with big tits and blonde hair, and, they don't care about that shit.
Yeah, that's
And it's partially because they know what it's like to be
alone or
to be treated, ostracised and treated poorly.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
That's the part that I like about it.
And they want to treat everybody like their parents treat them.
Yeah,
it's pretty
I
nice.
think, and it's a really good thing to see.
Yeah, there's a bit of humanity behind it.
Yeah,
yeah, I do like it.
Because some of the fucking scumbags out there.
Yep.
So nothing else.
But that's it. Yeah. Pretty lean.
Jared.
So last time we spoke, I'd started the Nolan Batman trilogy.
Yeah.
Batman Begins.
Dark Knight.
Yep, finished up The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. So, yeah, it was good to go back to. Really,
Dark Knight's still your top?
Dark Knight's still the best one, for sure. I actually previously liked The Dark Knight Rises a bit better than Batman Begins, but I think Batman Begins, all told, is probably a better movie. I still love a bit of Bane. One of the swings that Tom Hardy took that I actually like, the voice of Bane. And, yeah, I do love the trilogy. Absolutely love it. I think as a Batman fan, it's about as... It's probably the best that we've got for the whole run. I jumped onto, and I believe this will be on Binge, Adam, as well.
Really? I won't have time, mate. I'll be watching people push shit out of fucking people's backs. I haven't got time for that.
Sparked by a article on The Ringer about the legacy of Paradise Lost.
Oh, yes.
I watched the 3 movies, the Paradise Lost movies.
Pretty creepy stuff, that.
Yeah, I was always very aware of it. I remember when it first hit, and I had Foxtel at the time, and they used to play the ad, and I remember the part about Damien Eccles talking about the boogeyman and all that sort of stuff. So I was always aware of it, but I'd never sat down and watched it. So I watched all 3 of them. The first one, I mean, fuck, from the get-go, there's some really haunting shit.
Don't they show the crime scene?
They show the bodies.
Oh, man.
Bodies. And I wasn't prepared for that.
I will struggle. I will watch that, but I will struggle with that.
Yeah, it was fucking heartbreaking, to be honest. But the doco altogether is fantastic, because I don't think they ever intended, and reading a little bit about the article, they didn't intend to go there exposing a criminal system that wasn't working. They went there on the satanic panic part of it, I believe. So they just happened to get the access to everybody, and as it went along, it just became apparent. These kids got railroaded.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you look at the court case, and you're just like, there's not enough here. There's less here than there was for making a murderer.
Yeah.
And some of these other cases, there's no DNA. There's nothing. There's a knife that could be related, but turns out it wasn't. And the fact that they really did get fucking strung up because they lived in a highly conservative area, highly religious area, that these kids were the ones that listened to Metallica, and this Damien Eccles had, done it, like, had an interest in, like, witchcraft.
Yeah, but the thing for me is, and again, maybe I shouldn't ask this because it's probably self-explanatory, but the bottom line is there not one person going, look, there is nothing here. We have nothing. But the thing is, the cops know they've got nothing.
They get into the press conference and say, how strong's the case? 1 to 10.
Super
it's
strong.
11. Yeah. He said it's 11.
So you've got no DNA, you've got no physical evidence, you've got no witnesses, you've got no...
Well, Jesse Miskelly was the witness. His confession, I mean, and this is where I say there's less than making a murderer. His confession, he was in there for 12 hours, there's 45 minutes of tape. And he is mentally retarded. And on the tape, after 12 hours, there's parts where he goes, yeah, we got him about noon. And the guy on the tape says, when was it? Because they'd been at school. Wasn't it night time? Yeah, it was night time.
All right, so it's been led.
So you can hear the leading on the 45 minutes, and you think, that motherfucker's been in there for 12 hours being told, you'll go home.
Yeah.
You help us and you'll go home. I bet that's what he was told. Just like Brandon Dassey was fucking led to believe that you help us and you're...
See, it's always, in a lot of these cases, it's always people who don't have the finances or the knowledge to hire an attorney. So
yes,
the first thing that come out of anyone's mouth should be, I want to see an attorney.
Yeah. But again, this stuff wasn't really known. I mean, this was one of the early of its type. Even something like... The Thin Blue Line was retrospective. It was recreating things in flashback and whatever. This was sitting in the courtroom and seeing it all, and you're watching it and you're just kind of going, they're getting fucking railroaded. Even though you didn't see all of it, looking back at what they had, and they got released because eventually people knew that we've got nothing.
But they had to take an Alfred plea,
Yeah.
Which means that they don't admit that they have to admit guilt.
They admit guilt while saying we're innocent.
Yeah, that's ridiculous to start
because it saves the
means they can't sue or something.
They can't sue and whatever. Essentially, I think it came down to Damien Eccles' health. I think Jason Baldwin? I can't remember if that's his name. I think that's his name. But he by watching the third one, It only mentions it briefly in there, but I believe he wanted to stay in and continue and say, no, we get released on the merits of the case because they're not there. So he wanted to stay and fight, but Damien Eccles essentially just said his health was declining, he had fucking arthritis and shit, and said, I can't stay another day. So will you take the Alford plea? And they did.
I guess those things, you know, whether the investigation was obviously shit. Nobody really looked into anything else, so it would seem. Whether or not they did it, it's hard to tell, but I think on the balance of probabilities, they didn't.
I'm pretty sure. Well, yeah, you can't really, because there's nothing there. There's really nothing there. So it's hard to say who did it, but there is more evidence tying family members of the kids to the crime scene than there is the guys that went to prison for fucking 15 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's pretty bad.
Scary one.
It is. Other than that, I can't remember whether I mentioned it, but I had a look at the first episode of Young Rock. I think I did mention it.
Yeah.
I was going to jump on the next ones. Look, first episode's okay. It's a bit of a laugh, but it feels like, I don't know, you hear him tell some of these stories and it feels like it's going to be front-loaded. Feels like all this stuff is going to be, we're going to be getting all these funny stories early, and gradually as it goes, I just feel like the show's just going to taper off. If it's going to try to stick to true life stuff that supposedly happened to him, it's just going to taper off in humour and whatnot. And early on, it was still only a fairly decent show, not
so it's nothing special.
I believe it's been renewed for a season 2, but you know, it's going to have to go head to head with Walker season 2.
I haven't watched an episode of Walker for weeks.
No, I haven't either.
What's going on?
Fucking hiatuses, they've lost me.
Do you miss it? I don't miss it.
But you guys have never talked to not watching the show more.
I have not missed it for 1 second.
But once you finish up on Dr. Pimple Popper and you're thinking, what do I have next? And then you just happen to see Walker just hanging there with 4 or 5 episodes in the bank. I'll be straight back in.
All right, well, that is everything. So here's the trailer. We'll take a break. Here's the trailer for Psycho Goreman.
Many moons ago, a nameless evil was imprisoned in a place far beyond reach.
Hurry up!
If he were ever to be released, it would spell certain doom for all existence.
Is that fear I smell? Your planet will be torn to pieces, and I will take your epic screams as I rip.
Is this yours? Speak?
Oh my god.
The gem of Paraxidike. Whoever wields it is able to command me.
Go over there and wait for us to come back in the morning.
You will suffer an eternity for this.
Bye! Mom, Dad, I want you to meet Psycho Goreman, or PG for short.
I will bathe in your blood.
Don't worry.
Be worried. Slow down!
He's gonna kill everybody. Not unless I tell him to.
What did you 3 maniacs get up to?
This is getting a little weird.
This sick game must come to an end. She will enslave the galaxy into endless servitude. Kill him!
Cool.
The ultimate evil has awoken.
There's a new god in town, and his name? Psycho Goreman. It was nice meeting you.
It would be nicer if you were dead.
Alright, bye.
Psycho Goreman from 2020. Written and directed by Stephen Kostansky, who wrote and directed Father's Day, Jared. Would you like to comment on that?
No, we'll leave that one there.
Produced by Steve Kostansky, Shannon Hammer, who produced Broken Mile, and Stuart F. Andrews. It stars Matthew Nineveh as Psycho Goreman, Nita Jose Hanna as Mimi, and Owen Meir as Luke. It was $1.5 million Canadian budget. I don't know what that is. And the box office was 95,000 worldwide.
Oh, really?
Just not an economist in your spare time?
No, I don't know the conversion rates for that. Not much, I would have thought. That's what from an economist's perspective, I believe the professional term is not much. And the zombie cop in the film is actually a reference to Kostansky's 2012 short film Biocop.
There you go.
I did laugh at the zombie cop. All right, straight into it. What do we got here? What were our thoughts, Matty?
Look, I really like this movie. There is touches of Power Rangers in there. There's it's a comedy essentially, which I found really appealing. It's the same joke over and over, but it's a good joke, and they do it. They do it in a really, really good way. The ending, it gets a little bit lost. I don't know what the real message of it is. But I had so much fun with this. I gave it a 4.
Yeah. I also gave it a 4. Incredibly weird, but highly amusing and great fun. Yeah. I had a great time with it. When we talk about weird, and I was saying this to Jared when I first came over, people talk about Mandy, that fucking shit show that Cage was in. And they're going, oh, it's weird, but it's psychedelic and all that. That didn't tickle me at all for weird. This is the kind of thing, it's weirder than weird, but I was just enthralled for the entire time and having a great time with it. Yeah. There's plenty of laughs. Look, there's a couple of little things. Mimi can be a bit of a pain in the ass sometimes. And, I don't know, I kept seeing Power Rangers and getting taken out every time I saw those ridiculous costumes.
Weird giant brains.
Overall, mate, I was loving it. 4 out of 5, for sure. Yeah. Jared?
Yeah, I went 3.5.
3.5. So, Snake Eyes.
Snake Eyes again. I think it's a super premise. Like, it's really, really just a simple idea that's based on a bit of a, as soon as you hear it, you think this is going to be funny. Yeah. And for the most part, it is. I, like Maddie, I think the Power Rangers stuff was one of the strongest parts of it, because I think the aesthetic of that is probably the best part about it. Like, the costumes are all kind of, rubbery and all that sort of thing. And the designs of the characters, for the most part, are really good and fit that kind of mould.
I love the bucket full of human bodies that just spews blood out on him.
And it's funny because when you see that guy and you see him kind of rocking back and forth, you're like, that's exactly what they used to do. Those stupid kind of, the Super Sentai.
I was picturing that guy wearing the crown and just not quite fitting.
Yeah. But it's, I think that's great. I think it's adding a little bit of My Pet Monster sort of angle of her sort of controlling him again is very funny. I guess the downfall is when I watch it, I just think it could have been so much more. Even though I feel like it kind of nailed parts of it, there's parts where I look at it and go, it could have been even more, and it could have been a little bit funnier and a little bit of this and that. And I feel like the aesthetic was the focus, so the story gets left a little bit. And when you look at it, there's not a whole lot that goes on. Yeah. So I think, a little bit stronger on that front. But again, the humour and the aesthetics are strong enough for me that I really dig the film. And it's one of those ones where I love it and I look back on it and think, this is an absolute, it's something that I'll go back to again and again. But I look at something like Turbo Kid and think it kind of realised the thing a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, 3.5. Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes, baby.
He has been on a Snake Eyes streak recently. All right, straight out of the gate, I actually think the Psycho Goreman suit is quite impressive.
Yeah, it's cool.
From an FX perspective, and most of the gory moments are well handled.
Yeah, well, Kostansky is, I think he's
visual effects
fairly heavily involved in the visual effects. He's worked on other stuff as visual effects. I think he worked on things like It and...
Oh, really?
Wowzers.
But on the Astron 6 side of things, that's the little crew that did these things like Father's Day, and the editor, which again is pretty funny. Like, they're like a crew of them that do a little bit of everything together.
Yeah.
But I think his effects background really shines in this one.
$1.5 million, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Canadian, so that's $100.
And I feel... we just went down to the funny shop and picked a couple of outfits.
Yeah, that's right.
But I think this is where the Power Rangers angle really works, is that he's able to go a bit further because you get what he's going for, and so when you see a guy who's supposed to be metal but it's clearly a rubber suit, you're like, well, that's what it's supposed to look like because that's what it always used to look like. You kind of go along
with it. You don't sort of question it too much.
No, not at all.
I love the fact that the loser of Crazy Ball gets buried alive, and then we cut to the fucking boy digging his own grave after his
that
lost.
is a pit. That thing is a deep.
She's like, get digging. I want to go to bed or something like that. Oh shit! And then they're knocking. They knock on the door, the wall in Morse code.
Yeah.
And he knocks. You think it was Grandma? And the response is, I told you, Grandma's in hell.
Yeah, gold. Good stuff.
Good callback at the end there, too. Oh, dear. I think that Mimi is probably the worst person in the world to be entrusted with with the Psycho Goreman as a tool of. She's like, let's show him off. Let's take him down the street.
I think that's funny how it's kind of like the anti. There's a little bit of kind of the Steven Spielberg Amblin kind of family thing in here, but she's a pain in the ass. So it's kind of the anti-Amblin kind of character that gets the control of it, which is kind of cool.
And when they bring him out for the first time, he's there going, I will scorch the earth, and all this kind of crap in front of her, and she just goes, shut up and go sit over there. He wanders off. And then they're trying to name him.
Yeah.
And they're tossing around all these names. In the background, he's running on the spot. She's told him to just run on the spot. I just thought that shit was piss funny.
She was funny, man. She doesn't trust cops. Real American. He goes. She does a Warriors reference. Can you dig it?
Yeah. She said the "Can you dig it" a couple of times.
I like that it delivers on the gore promise. Like,
ripping those two homeless guys' heads off.
9 minutes in, we get the heads ripped off. It's like, okay, you promised and you delivered.
That was funny, man. They're sitting there drinking out of a bronze goblet. I really like that.
Yeah, that was good. I liked it. I also liked, he's fucking saying, "What is this shit?" and throwing a VCR on the ground. But then he picks up the frame and goes, "Why'd you even pick this up?"
Going, the frame is nice.
It was dark. It was a nice frame anyway.
I also the bit where they meet Alistair for the first time.
Yeah.
She goes, "Hey, Alistair. You're a hunky-looking piece. do a bit of a spin for us, will you?" I'm just like, holy shit. She's only about 10.
Yeah. One of my favourite parts, and I think it's a pretty shallow gag, but then, again, I think it comes back to those 80s kind of Spielberg movies and whatever, how the mother always seems so important.
Yeah.
I love the fact that we had the dad there, but he's a fucking dill. He's just an absolute dildo the whole movie.
Yeah.
Correct.
He's got some of the funniest lines in the whole movie. Like, as you said, Matty, the start of it where he's telling it, he comes out and he kind of, sees the hole and he's like, first thing I want to say is really well done on the hole. Second thing is completely unacceptable. Somebody's going to have to fill this in.
That's right.
But through the whole thing, he just dribbles nonsense, but some of it is funny. The first instance that I caught was when they're talking about what made those scratches, and he goes, "Well, if I had to guess, I'd say it's some wino on the way home from a bender last night who thought he could Evel Knievel his way over and, fell in the hole." And someone goes, "It could have been raccoons," and he goes, "Well, that makes no sense at all." I'm like, I like this character. This is my sort of character. But we get a few, again, there's the nothing scene about the dinner. And he's there going, "That's my famous chicken recipe." And the guy his son goes, "It's a little bit tough." And he goes, "The microwave will do that, but it sure brings out that flavour." I just love that shit. I don't know why. Every time he was talking, I couldn't stop laughing at him.
Oh shit! The sequence where we finally get to see, what were they called? The sort of brains trust. Intergalactic brains trust, where there's a guy, there's a skull with some flesh on it, with a glass cap over the top of it. And then when they do a bit of giggling about Pandora, and she squeezes that human into a cube and crushes it, and it flashes over to the skull guy, and he's like, he tucks his fucking lip in. Just like, this is gold.
They all look pretty funny, hey?
And they're constantly kind of watching things and having gags about, don't hog all the bloody...
yeah.
It's good shit.
There's that one character that's kind of speaking like that, he's got that tone about him that sort of fits again with some of those characters, and he's kind of, he's like, stop hogging all of this for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think he's the one, he also at one point, he covers the guy in the glass case's eyes, he just puts his hand over the glass. And I think he's also the guy at the end that starts going, who's going to kill themselves first? Yeah. Again, pretty good stuff there.
God. And then, of course, turning Alistair into a giant brain.
You beautiful blob.
Just to see it shuffling away when he says, I better go home. And he fucking shuffles away.
I think you missed out Alistair's best moment, or the best moment he was involved in, when he goes to PG. He's like, nice meeting you. And he goes, it'd be nicer if you were dead.
That constant bickering from old PG is hilarious.
Yeah.
You'll suffer an eternity for this.
Yeah.
And this isn't all the time.
There's a couple of moments where they kind of, that superiority in the way that he's kind of looking down on everyone, they kind of let it slip, and they just go for the obvious gag, like, when she says, what took you so long? And he's kind of there going, time is a construct of useless humans or whatever. And then he goes, also I got lost. They balance it pretty well, but I think, his constant disdain for
brainless children. So many good descriptions.
Yeah.
I'll never accept such a title.
The bit at the end when she's like, you got to promise not to kill her, and he's like, I will not kill you and your family of idiots.
The best bit is where Baby's telling the family, the mum and dad, look, he's fine. He's just a big teddy bear. He's not going to hurt you. And he's in the background going, I will bathe in your blood.
But he just does it to everyone too. These guys have come back to fight him in the afterlife. You'll be crowned king of the fools. He just destroys them. Yeah, so funny.
I think they played that part pretty well.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And the montage where they finally
that bit as well. I put my trust in the worst in the galaxy, the worst the galaxy has to offer, and this is how you choose to repay me. I loved it.
The montage when he's out shopping for fucking hats and shit, and they're playing in the band. Of course, the brain is there, fucking doing things. And then it cuts to them out in the shops trying on clothes, and the brain's trying on all these different hats. What's going on here?
Oh dear.
I actually I dig the fight with the crew that turned on him. I think that was, again, they nailed the Power Rangers, the aesthetic of those characters, the way they all kind of stand there in a line and kind of, pull those poses at him and shit like that. And then, the fight is funny. Like, as you said, that fucking silly thing that's just spilling blood on him, and then ends up, when he punches through the glass and it all starts spilling out. My favourite, without question, was the fucking head. The head.
It's rolling down the road later. The Wishmaster has survived to find another day, and then run over by a truck.
That was absolute gold. So I thought that little section was pretty cool.
But that fight too, that's when we first see him eating. I'll give you a warrior's heart.
That's so
and
good.
he just eats him and then yaks blood everywhere. Oh man, this is great.
Yeah.
That is something you cannot unsee.
And then
you'll carry this with you for eternity. It's going on. I loved it.
And then the father's reaction when he says, what does he say? You guys will continue in endless servitude. And he goes, endless servitude? That sounds like me married to you, Susan.
Always takes a chance to have a jab at his wife.
Yeah, that was funny. That relationship was so weird, but I like how it was just like they were so disconnected from each other. Mm-hmm. But of course, by the end, it's all kind of, we love each other. He was just he's taking the piss.
He's grabbed her after she's transformed back into his wife, and he's like, "My arm really hurts. We need to get to the hospital." After the high five,
straight back.
Yeah, the high five was piss funny. The high five was pretty practice.
Oh God, Jesus Christ!
I like the transitions between can we trust him, can't we trust him?
Yes.
And then they trust him, and he goes off and just destroys everything. You're like, you're hopeful he's found love and respect, but he's just like, I won't kill you.
Just kills everyone else.
I did like the fact that the final battle comes down to the crazy ball game, and then she explains it, and Pandora's like, what's the whole thing about switcheroo or whatever? And then later on, when they lose, she's like, this game is pure nonsense.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
I mean, you could see obviously that was going to happen, but still, it was piss funny because obviously everyone was taking sides, and there was the whole thing about she was upset with her brother, and Mum and Dad were upset, and obviously PG and the Pandora were upset with each other. So it was nicely set up to be that way.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was really highly amusing when she's just constantly confused by the rules.
Yeah, that's right. You like the cop?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the cop scene. I don't know why, but because he just sort of wanders around going and firing guns randomly and mumbling shit because his face is all melted. But I still found that shit highly amusing. He ends up doesn't PG just kill him?
He gets
because he joins in with that fucking group, and
he's like, PG is like admiring his work, and then Luke knocks him over.
Oh yes, that was.
And his head explodes. He's like, "Thank you," and then he just falls apart. Yeah.
My last one was Alistair coming down for dinner. Alistair, dinner's ready. And he fucking waddles down this giant brain, sits there, and nobody bats an eyelid.
That was a bit sad he didn't get changed back, poor fella.
Yeah, well, I thought he was going to.
Straight after that was the Turtle Powers homage at the end.
It's great.
It was so good. It was essentially the same song, just with Psycho Goreman lyrics. Like, as a kid who loved that Turtles movie, that struck right at the heart of me. I remember finding the soundtrack to that somewhere for $5 back in the day, and I was like, "This is the fucking luckiest day of my life." I found the soundtrack for $5. Turtle Power, spinning it non-stop.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
Partners in crime. Good
Partners in crime. I wonder what happened to them. That movie, I think that's all those Turtles movies are on Disney+.
I started watching the first one with my kid, and he's lost interest, which is a bit
I
sad.
believe it's not quite as good on second viewing. Is that correct?
The original one's
okay.
The next ones are. Yeah.
I started watching the third one, and that was back in time. It's like Samurai time.
Yeah,
that was painful.
The original one still holds up fairly well. I think the kind of darker take they put on Shredder, and that still works out pretty well.
What about the new remake version?
I haven't seen it.
Well, what about the sequel?
The sequel, I actually thought the sequel was a bit better because it was just more like the sequel to the Michael Bay produced ones. The sequel was a bit better because it had a bit of Bebop and Rocksteady and was just a bit more silly, like you kind of expected.
Yeah.
First one wasn't so great.
No.
The first one has all of the nostalgia of collecting cards and stuff around.
Yeah. You want to get on Turtle stuff, you get on the 2003. 2012, series. Awesome. It's actually really well written, brings back stuff from the old series, goes right back to the comics, characters that were from the comics.
Yeah.
Also, strangely, has fucking shitload of nods to horror movies.
Huh.
Yeah.
Lots and lots. There's like a Jason thing, there's an episode where there's like aliens. There's an episode where there's these fucking beavers that invade dreams that are voiced by Robert Englund. There's one where there's essentially Leatherface in the like it's fucking bananas.
Yeah.
The song from Halloween 3 pops up.
Oh yeah,
it's fucking excellent.
Wasn't there an animated movie as well?
Yeah,
but it was not much good either.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, but not great.
Went off tangent there. Okay. Any other likes on Psycho Goreman?
I think just, we haven't really mentioned it, but just the premise in general is fucking super idea.
Yeah.
Really good idea. It's one of those things, I liken it to things like Happy Death Day, where we get a familiar setup that just hasn't been brought into this horror-y kind of realm. Yeah. So having that idea to bring it in and do it that way is just
it worked out a treat like that.
What did you think of the dream sequence where Psycho Goreman jumps in?
Oh yeah, is that
Luke's having his dream and he's like, "This is the only way I could get you alone."
Yeah, that's right. Now we've got to wait until you
get out of this.
Come out of it. And he's just standing over him.
The dad on the toilet getting scared by Psycho Goreman's little light turning into his giant head, yelling at him.
Also, like where he's kind of like sitting in the bath, like after it's all happened, he's going, and then he's like, I don't know where that is. And he comes back and
comes back in telling him, Oh, that was rather amusing. Anything else?
It's pretty good. That's most of the movie, right?
I think that was it.
Dislikes. I think you had Mimi was good, but a couple of times where she was annoying and she went too far over the top.
Yeah.
And the character, thankfully they pull her back at the right time because it could have gone too far. And look, you pick your poison on this. Your enjoyment of the film would base itself a fair bit around whether you could stand it. You know, like if you couldn't stand that type of precocious, really over the top as she was, you're not going to enjoy this.
And I think the choice of it falling into the hands of a kid like that was the right one.
Yes.
But as you said, there's points where it's like it's got to be balanced, right?
Yeah. And it lost that balance on a few occasions.
We don't know why she's so precocious. A lot of the times with that sort of a character,
there's a reason behind it or whatever. Yeah. And I wasn't so hung up on that. Like, it doesn't bother me greatly that we didn't know why she was like that.
Yeah.
But you had to balance it. Yeah, and I don't think they did. They actually had some where she just tips over into being an absolute pain in the arse.
Yeah.
And extremely difficult to sort of deal with or watch. So that was one of my main things. The other big one for me is the switch of her telling her brother that she cared about him. That just didn't fit for me. I mean, you see it coming, but she was such a
pain
that
the whole way.
I was expecting her to basically tell him to stop being a pussy.
Yeah, pretty much.
And she's pretty much taken on the role of the tough dad that can't tell his kids that he loves them.
Yeah,
but they've just embodied her in like a 10-year-old girl.
Yeah,
you know? It's and I thought I didn't think it was that bad. I like the I'm sorry. She eventually
that
says
bit there, but the whole
bad,
singing and that, which just didn't.
It didn't fit in with
what was happening. It just didn't fit in with what was going on.
No, and it feels like I don't know. Maybe this is kind of tied in, but one of my dislikes was that it felt like in going for the focus on that aesthetics and focusing on that funny premise and whatever, that perhaps the story was. I wouldn't say an afterthought, but they're spoofing those kind of family values that were in some of these movies. And the learning a lesson that, there's always a lesson at the end and things like that. And it just doesn't happen here. And you feel like there's a reason it doesn't happen. But then, like you said, they have that switch anyway, that the little family unit loves each other. But it's just kind of, especially with that one, it's like, where did it come from?
There's not a lot of pay. There's not it doesn't earn it.
Like you said, it would have made more sense for her to go fucking get up your punts or
something. Yeah. Like,
the family dynamic in general was a semi-dislike for me. Like, the dad was so weird, and the whole conversation of once there was this guy who had a van and he wanted to show me some baseball cards. You're like, it's just some weird stuff going on.
I'm glad I ran into that weirdo.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, that was fucking... Yeah,
it was a bit off colour. It was a bit off colour. And then just in general, the father and the mother's relationship was a bit uncomfortable. Like it didn't really fit in with them being a family unit and them like having love, being able to teach the guy who is loveless how to be affectionate. It didn't fit in with that manipulation of the. And
I think it comes back to what you were saying, Jared, is that the idea was central, but the plot mechanics are kind of really a bit sort of on the side.
Yeah,
we don't really get a lot of, as you say, not much really happened.
Yeah.
Across the entire film.
I feel like, something like the montage is an example of how it goes half-baked on a few of those things. I like the montage, but it just came out of nowhere. Like, there was no lead-up to go on to that montage, and then it was, let's go shopping for clothes, and it's like, well, where did that come from? So I get a bit of a laugh out of the montage and things like that, but I'm just like, it just didn't come from anywhere.
Yeah.
And it feels like if you had a bit more of that some of those moments and the payoffs would have been even funnier.
Agreed.
So I felt that was a bit of an issue. I also, we had a few laughs at the brain. I thought that was the worst effect in the whole movie.
It was.
It didn't look good at all, and everything else, I thought, even being on the cheaper side, looked really good. But the brain just looked like... It looked like paper mache.
Yeah, I think it was.
Wide-eyed Krang.
Yeah, it reminded me of Krang out of Turtles.
Especially given that they had the bloke in the jar that looked very... maybe he would have been the better option to...
He was great.
The other thing, my very last one is, and I couldn't help but, I've watched it a couple of times now, and I've kind of landed on this is where I feel like I go back and think about it, and I think what could have been makes me wonder, like, could it have been 2 movies? Like, could they have just gone all the way, could have gone all in on the Power Rangers stuff and then all in on the My Pet Monster stuff as 2 different angles? Because it felt like it took those 2 ideas,
melded them together,
and put them together, and at some points it was for the detriment.
Yeah,
because
maybe.
I feel like I look at it and I think, if I had a movie in this vein of the 5 kids turning into a Power Rangers type force, then as the movie goes on, the bad guys really fucking, there's lots of gore and shit like that. And as the movie goes on, you find like your Pandora type character who has been leading this Power Rangers force is actually the bad guy and the good guys. Like, that would have worked.
Yeah.
But then also if you had like the My Pet Monster setup where Psycho Goreman was just being led around by the kid, that also works as a movie itself.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe they could have, maybe there was too many ideas.
They could have juggled things better. Or maybe come up with
because the more I watch it, the more I think, damn, I wish the actual Power Rangers kind of rip-off was in it as well. Especially when they go have the little council and shit like that, because that stuff is funny. And I feel like they could have mined the other stuff for the humour as well.
Yeah.
But, again, that's just me looking back at it. Not saying I didn't enjoy it. I'm just kind of like, I probably enjoyed it to the point where I wanted it to be even better. I wanted more of it,
And maybe it ties into what you were saying. I was thinking when that scene in the diner, I was like, nobody's listening. Gorman's like coming up with this story about his past, and then he gets cut off by the girl. It would have been nice if Luke maybe tapped into that and he connected with Luke and they could have had some sort of a connection.
Yeah.
I thought that was like a missed opportunity.
That could have actually added something further to the
because it just goes from is this love from I'm going to kill everybody to is this what love is?
Yeah.
And then he's apparently picked up some sort of concept because she's sung a song.
Yeah.
Like, it couldn't have been somebody's actually sat and listened to him, and in the dream that was an opportunity for him to have a conversation or something.
And it would have given Luke's character some arc.
A little bit of depth.
Because he didn't really do much. He was just being picked on by Mimi, and that was it. The arc was that they needed to sort of get back together.
Needed to have somebody to take the
it was back. just felt a little bit. He felt superfluous.
Yeah, like a lost opportunity. I felt.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Anything else?
No, that was pretty much it. No? I think it was like you said. It went for just fun and not much more than that, and I think it landed
successfully
on that.
landed that. I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Successfully.
I want to know what the worms of Giannis look like. And what makes them good people. But
yeah, that's correct.
But I really enjoyed it.
Hopefully, there's a sequel in the works with regards to that. But that is Psycho Goreman. You can find us on Podomatic, iTunes, and Spotify. Send us an email at thrillme@iinet.net.au. Our Facebook page is Thrill Me Podcast Australia. Podomatic is thrillme.podomatic.com, and we're on Instagram at thrillmepodcastau. Keep an eye on our Facebook page for more details of our next film. But until then, take it easy, and we'll catch up with everyone later. Cheers. Find the podcast at Podomatic or on iTunes. Don't forget to rate and review. Like us on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia, or contact us at thrillme, all one word, all lowercase, at iinet.net.au.